My name is Elsa, and at 39 years old, I thought my retirement party from the police force would be the happiest day of my life. 20 years of serving and protecting our community surrounded by fellow officers who became family, my husband Mark by my side. But as I stood there in my navy dress, watching him whisper urgently with someone in the corner, something felt terribly wrong. He kept checking his watch, gripping papers in his jacket pocket. I had no idea my life was about to shatter. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, please hit like and subscribe to hear how I turned the worst day of my life into my greatest victory. Let me take you back to what I thought was a perfect life. Mark and I had been married for 19 years. He was 42, a successful investment banker who wore designer suits and always smelled like expensive cologne. We met at a charity event when I was just a rookie cop fresh out of the academy. He was there representing his firm, and I was providing security. He spent the entire evening finding excuses to talk to me, bringing me water, asking about my job. His charm was effortless, his smile genuine, or so I thought. We built what looked like an ideal life together in our beautiful colonial house in Connecticut. 4 bedrooms, white picket fence, the kind of place where neighbors waved hello and kids rode bikes until sunset. Our daughter Emma was 17, smart as a whip, headed to Yale in the fall. Our son Jake, 15, was the star of his soccer team, had his father's confident smile. But thankfully my sense of right and wrong. My career in law enforcement meant everything to me. I joined the force to make a difference, to be the kind of cop who actually helped people. Over 2 decades, I worked my way up from patrol officer to sergeant. 3 times I was offered a detective position. 3 times I turned it down. Mark always had a reason why the timing wasn't right. His promotion was coming up. The kids needed stability. His parents were visiting. Looking back, I see it clearly. He never wanted me to outshine him. Meanwhile, Mark's career soared from junior analyst to senior partner. Every late night he worked, I had dinner waiting when he got home. Every business trip, I packed his suitcase. Every office party, I was the perfect wife, charming his colleagues, remembering their spouses' names, their kids' colleges. I was his secret weapon, the stable foundation that let him climb higher and higher. The decision to retire came after an incident 3 months ago. I was arresting a drug dealer when his accomplice jumped me from behind. My shoulder got dislocated, and the department doctor said I had enough years for early retirement with full benefits. That night, Mark held me while I cried, torn between my love for the job and my body telling me to stop. "You've given enough to this city," he said, stroking my hair. 20 years of putting yourself in danger. Maybe it's time to enjoy life. Travel. Spend time with the kids before they leave for college. Spend time with me. It sounded perfect. We started planning the retirement party immediately. Mark insisted on handling everything. He wanted it to be special, he said. A celebration worthy of my service. We would rent the Ocean View Country Club, invite everyone who mattered. My entire precinct, our neighbors' friends from Emma's school, Jake's coaches. Family would fly in from across the country. 75 people to witness what should have been my moment of triumph. For 3 months, Mark threw himself into planning. He chose the menu, hired a photographer, even commissioned an ice sculpture shaped like a police badge. He was more involved in this party than he'd been in our anniversary celebrations for years. I thought he was finally appreciating me. How foolish I was. The red flags were everywhere, but I was too busy wrapping up cases to see them. 6 months ago, the late nights increased. He'd come home at midnight, sometimes later, claiming merger negotiations or emergency client meetings. His phone, which used to lay carelessly on the counter, was suddenly always face-down, password protected. When it rang, he'd step outside to answer. There was new cologne, something Italian and expensive that replaced the Calvin Klein I'd bought him for 15 years. A gym membership appeared on our credit card statement, but his body showed no signs of working out. Business trips to Miami started happening monthly, which seemed odd since his firm's other office was in Boston. In bed, he was distant, mechanical, like his mind was elsewhere. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at nothing, and when I asked what he was thinking, he'd say, "Just work stuff," and turn away. The man who used to pull me close every night now slept on the edge of his side as far from me as possible without falling off. The kids noticed too. Emma mentioned Dad seemed weird lately, always on his phone during dinner. Jake said he'd seen Dad's car at strange places like the expensive hotel downtown when he was supposed to be at work. They were worried, but didn't want to upset me. We all walked around the house pretending everything was normal while sensing it absolutely wasn't. My partner, Detective Tony Martinez, tried to warn me. We'd been partners for 8 years, been through shootings, investigations, saved each other's lives more than once. He knew me better than almost anyone. "Something's off with Mark," he told me one afternoon as we finished paperwork. "Last week at the barbecue, he couldn't even look you in the eye." I laughed it off. "He's stressed about work. You know how it is." Tony gave me that look, the one he used during interrogations when someone was lying. "Elsa, I've seen enough cheating spouses to know the signs." "Not Mark," I said firmly. "We're solid. We're planning my retirement party together. He's been amazing." Tony dropped it, but the concern never left his eyes. The morning of my retirement party, I woke up alone. Mark's side of the bed was cold. A note on his pillow said he'd gone early to handle last-minute details at the venue. I stretched, feeling optimistic for the first time in months. Today marked a new chapter for us. More time together, maybe a second honeymoon. We talked about Paris. Emma knocked on my door around noon carrying her makeup bag. Ready to get gorgeous, Mom. She did my makeup while Jake lounged on the bed making us laugh with stories from soccer practice. These moments with my kids were everything. They were the reason I'd stayed strong through every dangerous call, every long shift. They were why the retirement decision, though difficult, felt right. The navy dress hung on the closet door, a gift from Mark last week. It was elegant, expensive, the kind of thing I'd never buy myself. The color matched my badge, he'd said, a tribute to my service. I slipped it on, and Emma zipped it up, whistling appreciatively. "You look beautiful, Mom. Dad's going to fall in love all over again." If only she'd known what Dad was actually planning. We arrived at the Ocean View Country Club at 2 in the afternoon. The October sun made the ocean sparkle, and the club's white columns looked majestic against the blue sky. Mark met us at the entrance, kissing my cheek quickly, barely making eye contact. "You look nice," he said, already turning away. "I need to check something with the caterer." The main ballroom took my breath away. Round tables with navy and gold linens, centerpieces of white roses and baby's breath. A massive banner reading, "Congratulations, Sergeant Elsa Coleman, 20 years of service," hung across the stage. The ice sculpture of my badge gleamed on the buffet table. Photos from throughout my career decorated the walls. Me in uniform on graduation day, receiving commendations. The newspaper photo when I saved those 3 kids from the burning building. People started arriving, and soon the room filled with laughter and conversation. Chief Williams, a mountain of a man who'd been like a father figure to me, pulled me into a bear hug. "We're going to miss you, Coleman. Best damn cop I've ever worked with." My mother had flown in from Seattle, tears already streaming down her face. She held my hands, told me how proud Dad would have been if he'd lived to see this day. My sister Lisa came from Denver with her family. Brothers in blue from precincts across the state showed up. The room was full of love, or so it seemed. Mark gave the opening toast at 3 o'clock, champagne glass in hand. His words were perfect, practiced. "To my wife, who has spent 20 years protecting strangers while always making our family feel safe and loved." Everyone applauded. He didn't meet my eyes once. Chief Williams told the story everyone requested at every gathering. The warehouse fire 5 years ago. 3 kids trapped inside. Everyone else waited for backup, but I went in. Carried out a 7-year-old boy, went back for his sisters. 3rd-degree burns on my arms, spent a week in the hospital. Mark had been there every day holding my hand. Or was he? Now I wondered if he'd really been at the hospital all those hours. Tony made everyone laugh with stories from our partnership. The time we went undercover at a wedding and I caught the bouquet while arresting the groom. The drug dealer who tried to run but tripped over his own pants. The elderly woman who called 911 every week just to chat and always requested us. Through it all, I noticed things. Mark constantly checking his phone, stepping out to the terrace. His assistant Brittany was there, which seemed odd. She worked at his firm, but we'd never socialized. 28 years old, blonde, wearing a skin-tight red dress, completely inappropriate for the occasion. She kept finding reasons to touch Mark's arm, lean close to whisper something. Each time he'd stiffen, but not move away. Mark's parents weren't there. He'd said they were sick, both of them stomach flu. But his mother had texted me yesterday about how excited she was to come. When I tried calling her that morning, Mark grabbed my phone, said we shouldn't bother them if they were ill. Roger, Mark's business partner, avoided me entirely. Usually chatty Roger, who loved telling awful golf jokes. Today he couldn't make eye contact, hovering near the exit like he wanted to bolt. When I approached him, he mumbled congratulations and practically ran to the bathroom. At 4:15, I overheard Mark on the terrace, his voice tense. Just wait until 4:30. 15 more minutes. Yes, everything's ready. Brittany left suddenly after Mark whispered something to her. She touched his face, a gesture too intimate for boss and assistant, then walked out. But she didn't go far. I could see her through the window, waiting in the parking lot, checking her watch. My sister Lisa pulled me aside near the dessert table. Elsa, what's going on? Mark seems jumpy as a cat. Probably just stressed about the party, I said, but doubt crept into my voice. And who's the blonde in the inappropriate dress? His assistant. Lisa's eyebrows shot up. Since when do assistants get invited to family events? I didn't have an answer. Behind the gift table, I noticed Mark's briefcase, which seemed strange. Why bring work to my retirement party? When I tried to look closer, Roger suddenly appeared, blocking my path, babbling about the weather. The unease in my stomach grew stronger. 20 years of cop instinct screamed that something was very wrong. The way people kept looking at me with pity. The way Mark's colleagues whispered in corners. The way Mark himself couldn't stand still, constantly checking his watch. 4:30 arrived with the grandfather clock's chime. Mark immediately walked to the stage, tapping the microphone. The room fell silent, everyone expecting another toast. He cleared his throat, adjusted his tie. His hands shook slightly. I want to thank everyone for coming today to celebrate Elsa. He began, his voice steady but cold. She has been brave for 20 years, facing danger every day. Now I need to be brave too. The room waited. I smiled, expecting some sweet declaration of love. Instead, he reached inside his jacket, pulling out a manila envelope. Elsa, I'm serving you with divorce papers. Today. Right now. The words hung in the air like a bomb before detonation. Then chaos. My champagne glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone screamed. My mother stood up so fast her chair fell backward. But Mark wasn't done. He continued speaking to the stunned room as if he'd rehearsed this moment. We've grown apart. We want different things. I've been unhappy for years, pretending everything was fine. But I can't pretend anymore. I've found someone who understands my ambitions, who shares my vision for the future. My vision blurred. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not in front of everyone I respected, everyone who mattered to me. Chief Williams started moving toward the stage, his face murderous. Tony grabbed his arm, holding him back. You son of a bitch! My mother shouted, her Seattle politeness completely gone. How dare you do this to her here? Mark ignored her, still talking. I know this seems harsh, but I thought a public setting would be best. Keep things civilized. Elsa understands the importance of staying calm under pressure. My daughter's voice cut through everything. Oh my God, you're with her, aren't you? Emma pointed at the doorway where Brittany had reappeared, standing there in her red dress like a beacon of betrayal. On her left hand, catching the light, was an engagement ring. A massive diamond, the kind I'd never wanted, never asked for in 20 years of marriage. Dad, you serious? Jake's voice cracked with rage and disbelief. You're leaving Mom for your secretary. Mark finally showed emotion, his jaw tightening. Brittany and I are together, yes. We have been for 8 months. We're in love. 8 months. While I was recovering from my shoulder injury. While we were planning this party. While we made love, while we talked about Paris, while we sat at family dinners. 8 months of lies. The room erupted. 3 officers lunged toward Mark, and Tony had to physically block them. My mother was screaming obscenities I didn't know she knew. Emma was sobbing. Jake punched the wall so hard his knuckles split open. Mark's lawyer, who I now realized had been at the party all along, approached with more papers. Mrs. Coleman, these are the full divorce documents. Mr. Coleman is requesting the house be sold joint custody of the minor child and half of your pension. Half of my pension. The pension I'd earned by risking my life every day while he sat in an air-conditioned office. The house where I'd raised our children while he traveled with his mistress. Joint custody of Jake, who couldn't even look at his father right now. Mark stepped off the stage, walking toward Brittany. He took her hand, and together they headed for the door. At the threshold, he turned back. The papers need to be signed within 30 days. My lawyer will be in touch. Then they were gone, leaving me standing in the wreckage of my life, surrounded by people who didn't know whether to comfort me or chase after Mark and beat him senseless. The ice sculpture of my badge stood there melting slowly, water pooling on the tablecloth like tears. I sank into a chair, the divorce papers clutched in my hand. 20 years of marriage ended in a 5-minute speech at my retirement party. The room spun. People were talking, shouting, crying, but all I could hear was white noise. My perfect life, my perfect family had been a lie. Lisa knelt beside me, taking my hands. Elsa, breathe. Just breathe. But how could I breathe when my chest felt crushed? How could I think when my mind was screaming? How could I stand when my legs had turned to water? This wasn't just betrayal. This was annihilation. That night back at the house that no longer felt like home, the truth kept pouring in like water through a broken dam. Emma sat beside me on the couch, her laptop open, tears streaming down her face as she showed me what she'd found. Brittany's Instagram was a catalog of my husband's infidelity. There they were in Miami, the trips he said were for business. Beach photos, sunset dinners, her hand on his chest, his arms around her waist. The timestamps went back 8 months, just like he'd said. But the comments from her friends suggested it had been going on even longer. "Look at this one, Mom," Emma said, her voice shaking with rage. She showed me a photo from 2 months ago. Brittany at a spa, captioning it, "Thanks to my amazing man for the perfect weekend." The same weekend, Mark told me he was at a conference in Boston. Jake came downstairs with a box of papers he'd found in Mark's home office. Credit card statements I'd never seen. A secret visa with charges that made my stomach turn. Jewelry stores, $5,000 for a necklace, $8,000 for a bracelet. Restaurants I'd never been to, hotels in the city when he was supposed to be at work. In total, over $20,000 spent on another woman while I clipped coupons to save for the kids' college funds. My sister Lisa had been on the phone with our cousin who worked at a bank. She hung up her face pale. "Elsa, you need to check your accounts right now." With trembling fingers, I logged into our online banking. The retirement fund we'd built together, the one meant to secure our future, had been emptied 3 days ago. $70,000 gone. The investment account showed a transfer to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Another $150,000 vanished. I ran to the bedroom to my grandmother's jewelry box in the safe. The combination hadn't been changed, but the box was nearly empty. Her diamond earrings, the pearl necklace she wore at her wedding, the emerald ring passed down through 4 generations. Only a few costume pieces remained. "Mom," Jake called from downstairs, "you need to hear this." Our neighbor Sharon stood at the door, wringing her hands. She'd been my friend for 10 years. Our kids grew up together. "I should have told you," she started, already crying. "I saw her at your house, multiple times when you were at work. I thought maybe she was a client or something, but then I saw them kissing in the driveway. That was 3 months ago. I didn't know how to tell you. I'm so sorry." After Sharon left, the phone started ringing. Mark's co-workers, people I'd considered friends, called with confessions. Everyone knew. They'd seen Mark and Brittany at restaurants, at hotels, at the office after hours. His secretary admitted she'd been booking their travel together, separate tickets, to make it look like they weren't traveling together, but always the same flights, same hotels. Roger finally called his guilt eating him alive. Elsa, I tried to tell him not to do it this way. But Mark had it all planned out. He chose your retirement party specifically. He thought if he did it publicly, you wouldn't make a scene. He said cops were trained to stay calm, that you'd handle it professionally. He actually laughed about it, said it was the perfect solution. How long have you known? I asked, my voice deadly quiet. A year. He met Brittany at a corporate event last year. It started as flirting, then got serious fast. He talked about leaving you 6 months ago, but wanted to get his finances in order first. That's why he's been moving money. And Elsa, there's more. Brittany's pregnant. 3 months along. They're getting married next month. The phone slipped from my hand. Pregnant. While I was recovering from my injury, while my shoulder ached and I could barely dress myself, my husband was creating a new family with another woman. Emma had been listening. She grabbed the phone from the floor, screaming into it. Uncle Roger, you're a coward. You knew and said nothing. You're as guilty as he is. My children's pain was worse than my own. Emma revealed she'd confronted her father 3 weeks ago. She'd seen a text from Brittany pop up on his phone, something about, "Can't wait until we're together permanently." When she asked him about it, he told her she was imagining things, that teenage hormones were making her paranoid. He actually grounded her for snooping. Jake pulled me aside, his eyes red. Mom, I found condoms in Dad's car 2 months ago. A whole box in the glove compartment. You guys don't use those. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to hurt you. I should have said something. This isn't your fault, I told him, pulling him close. None of this is on you or Emma. Your father made these choices. My mother arrived an hour later with my aunt, both of them ready for war. My mother, all 5 feet 2 inches of her, paced the living room like a caged tiger. 20 years I've watched him diminish you, she said. Every time you had an achievement, he found a way to make it about him. Every time you could have advanced in your career, he had a reason why you shouldn't. I kept my mouth shut because you loved him. But I never liked him, Elsa. Never. He was always a narcissist in an expensive suit. The doorbell rang again. Tony stood there with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. Behind him were 5 other officers from my precinct. We figured you might need some support, Tony said. And if Mark shows up, well, we're here for that too. As we sat around the kitchen table picking at food no one wanted to eat, more truth emerged. The officers had done some digging. Brittany Stone wasn't even her real name. She was Brittany Sanders, and she had a history. 2 previous relationships with married men, both executives, both left their wives for her and both ended up broke and alone within a year. She's got a pattern, Tony explained, sliding a folder across the table. Meets them at work, plays the understanding mistress, gets them to leave their wives, then takes everything she can. She was arrested 5 years ago for credit card fraud, but got off on a technicality. I stared at the photos in the folder. Brittany with different men, same poses, same restaurants, even the same captions on social media. She was a professional homewrecker. There's more, Tony said gently. My buddy at the prosecutor's office ran a check. She's not pregnant. The ultrasound she's been showing around is fake, downloaded from the internet. She probably told Mark she's pregnant to speed up the divorce. The room went silent. Even my mother stopped pacing. Mark had destroyed our family for a con artist. He'd thrown away 20 years for someone who was playing him the same way she'd played others. Are you going to tell him? Lisa asked. I thought about it. Part of me wanted him to know immediately, to watch his new world crumble. But another part, the strategic cop part, knew better. Not yet, I said. Let him dig his own grave a little deeper first. The next morning I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. 20 years as a cop had taught me how to investigate, how to build a case, how to take down criminals. Mark might not be a street criminal, but what he'd done was theft, fraud, and emotional abuse. It was time to stop being the victim and start being the cop. My first call was to Jennifer Walsh, the best divorce attorney in the state. She'd been a prosecutor before going into private practice, and we'd worked together on several cases. She agreed to see me immediately. "This is financial abuse at its worst," she said after reviewing everything. "Taking out a second mortgage without your knowledge is fraud. Emptying retirement accounts is theft. Moving money offshore to hide assets during a divorce is illegal. We can freeze everything today." By noon, Jennifer had filed emergency motions. Every account Mark had access to was frozen. The house was put under a restraining order preventing its sale. His passport was flagged. The offshore account was reported to the IRS. The man who thought he was so smart had made crucial mistakes in his arrogance. I put my detective skills to work on Brittany. Using my connections, I dug deeper into her past. Real name, Brittany Marie Sanders. Age 29, not 28. Previous arrests, credit card fraud, identity theft, and blackmail. Though only the fraud charge stuck. She'd been married once at 19, divorced at 21 after cleaning out her husband's accounts. Her first married target was a doctor in Philadelphia. She worked as a receptionist at his practice, had an affair, got him to leave his wife and 3 kids. Within 6 months, she'd maxed out his credit cards and disappeared with his Porsche. He tried to press charges, but she'd been smart enough to get her name on everything first. The second was a real estate developer in Baltimore. Same pattern. Met at a conference where she was working as an event coordinator. His wife found out when Brittany sent her photos of them together, trying to speed up the divorce. He left his wife, married Brittany, and within a year she'd sold his properties by forging his signature and vanished with $2 million. He spent 3 years in court trying to recover his losses. Her ex-boyfriend from between Marks was the gold mine. Danny, a bartender she'd dated briefly, called me back after Tony reached out to him. "She's a professional manipulator," Danny told me over coffee. She actually bragged about it when she was drunk one night. Said men over 40 were easy targets. They all think they're special, that a young woman really loves them for who they are. She laughed about how stupid they were. "Do you have any proof?" I asked. Danny pulled out his phone. "I recorded her once talking about her plans. I kept it because I knew someday someone would need it." The recording was damning. Brittany's voice clear as day, talking about Mark. This was from 6 months ago, 2 months into their affair. She described him as another idiot with a savior complex, and detailed her plan to get him to divorce me, marry her, then take him for everything. She even mentioned the fake pregnancy trap. "The pregnancy thing works every time," her recorded voice said. "These older guys panic about being fathers again, but also get excited about proving they're still virile. Once I'm pregnant, they speed everything up. Then after the divorce is final, oops, miscarriage. So tragic. Need expensive therapy and a vacation to recover." I made copies of everything. Jennifer was ecstatic when I brought her the evidence. "This changes everything. We can prove manipulation, conspiracy to commit fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Mark's not just losing in the divorce, he could face criminal charges for the financial crimes, and Brittany definitely will." The counterattack began immediately. Jennifer filed criminal complaints for fraud and theft. The state bar was notified about Mark's financial crimes, putting his ability to practice investment banking at risk. His firm was contacted with evidence of embezzlement because we discovered he'd been using company cards for Brittany's gifts and writing them off as client entertainment. Within 48 hours, Mark's world started crumbling. His firm suspended him pending investigation. His accounts were frozen so he couldn't access money. Brittany's accounts were frozen too, based on the evidence of her previous crimes. The IRS opened an investigation into the offshore accounts. The police opened a fraud investigation. But the best part came from an unexpected source. Brittany's other ex-boyfriend, the one she was texting while with Mark. He reached out through social media, angry about being dumped. "She's playing your husband," he wrote, "but she's also playing me and at least 2 other guys. She's got a whole rotation. Your husband is just the current biggest fish." He sent screenshots. Brittany texting him explicit photos while she was supposedly with Mark. Messages about how she couldn't wait to be done with this boring old fool and be with him instead. Dating profiles she'd kept active chatting with wealthy men setting up future targets. I forward everything to Jennifer, but also with perhaps a bit of vengeance I created an anonymous email account and sent everything to Mark. Let him discover the truth himself. Let him see what he destroyed his family for. The public response was overwhelming. Somehow, probably through one of the many people at the party, the story got out. The local news picked it up. Decorated police sergeant served divorce papers at retirement party. The community was outraged. Mark's photo was all over social media labeled as the worst husband in Connecticut. Our kids' schools found out. Emma's friends rallied around her, but she told me how people whispered when she walked by. Jake got into 3 fights defending me, suspended twice. Their pain was unbearable to watch. They loved their father, and he'd chosen public humiliation for all of us. A week after the party, a GoFundMe appeared started by my fellow officers. Support Sergeant Coleman after public betrayal. I tried to have it taken down, but Chief Williams overruled me. Let people help, he said. You've given 20 years to this community. Let them give back. It raised $50,000 in 3 days. Officers from departments across the state contributed. People I'd helped over the years shared stories. The woman whose son I'd saved from an overdose. The elderly man I'd checked on every week after his wife died. The teenage girl I'd mentored who was now in college. The community Mark thought would judge me instead wrapped me in support. Meanwhile, Mark was learning the truth about Brittany. She'd moved into his emergency rental apartment, a cramped 2-bedroom, nothing like our house. But within days, she was already showing her true colors. She maxed out his one remaining credit card on shopping sprees. When he confronted her about the pregnancy, asking to go to a doctor's appointment with her, she claimed she'd miscarried due to the stress of the situation. His brother called me furious. I told him at Christmas that something was off about her. She kept asking about his finances, his investments. She literally asked me how much Mark would inherit when Mom and Dad die. What kind of person asks that? Mark's parents, who'd actually been in perfect health, were devastated. His mother called me sobbing. We weren't sick, Elsa. He told us not to come. Said you wanted a small party family was too much pressure. We found out what happened from Facebook. I'm so ashamed of him. You're the daughter I chose, not the one I birthed. He's no son of mine anymore. 2 weeks after the party, Mark showed up at the house at midnight, pounding on the door. I watched him through the security camera, looking haggard, unshaven, wearing sweatpants instead of his usual suit. Elsa, please. I need to talk to you. I called the police, not opening the door. Tony responded personally, arriving in record time. You need to leave Mark, Tony said, hand on his weapon. There's a restraining order. This is my house, too. Not anymore. You should have thought about that before the country club stunt. Mark saw me watching through the window. Elsa, she's not pregnant. It was all a lie. She's been lying about everything. I stepped onto the porch, staying behind Tony. I know. His face crumpled. You know? How long have you known? Since the day after my party. Turns out cops are pretty good at investigating. Who would have thought? I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But we can fix this. 20 years, Elsa. Doesn't that mean anything? It meant everything to me. That's why I turned down promotions, moved for your job, raised our kids alone while you traveled. 20 years meant everything to me, and nothing to you. I was confused. Midlife crisis. She seduced me, manipulated me. Jake appeared beside me, his voice cold. Nobody manipulated you into serving divorce papers at Mom's retirement party. That was all you. Jake, son, please. I'm not your son anymore. You made sure of that when you chose public humiliation over private conversation. Mark turned desperate. She's stealing from me, Brittany. She's taking everything. She's already talking to other men. I saw her dating profiles. She's a con artist. Yes, she is, I said calmly. A con artist with a history of targeting married executives, which you would have known if you'd done even basic due diligence instead of thinking with your ego. I'll give you everything in the divorce. The house, the money, full custody. Just please let me come home. Emma had joined us now, standing strong beside her brother. Home, you destroyed our home. You killed it the moment you stood on that stage. Mark fell to his knees, actually sobbing. The proud investment banker reduced to begging on his knees in sweatpants. I love you, Elsa. I never stopped loving you. You don't destroy someone you love in front of everyone they respect. You don't steal from someone you love. You don't plan for a year to humiliate someone you love. You don't even know what love is. Tony stepped forward. Time to go, Mark. Don't make me arrest you. As Tony escorted him to his car, Mark kept looking back, still crying. The man who'd been so composed, so cruel at my party was completely broken. But I felt no satisfaction. Just emptiness, where 20 years of love used to be. The legal proceedings moved quickly after that. With all the evidence of fraud, theft, and conspiracy, Jennifer got everything we asked for. The house remained mine. Mark had to return all stolen funds, plus penalties. I got full custody of Jake, with Mark only getting supervised visitation, which Jake refused anyway. My pension remained untouched. The second mortgage was voided as fraudulent. Mark lost his job permanently when the firm discovered he'd been embezzling. His investment banking license was revoked. Criminal charges were filed for fraud and theft. He took a plea deal for probation and restitution to avoid jail time, but his career was over. At 42, he was unemployable in his field, living in a studio apartment driving a 10-year-old Honda instead of his BMW. Brittany faced her own consequences. The fraud charges from multiple states caught up with her. She was arrested at a new target's house trying to run the same con on a 60-year-old CEO. This time she didn't escape justice. Multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy meant real prison time. 3 to 5 years out and 2 with good behavior, but her days of destroying families were over. The universe has an interesting sense of humor. 3 months after my disaster of a retirement party, I was at the grocery store when I bumped into David Chen. Dr. David Chen, to be precise, a pediatrician who'd treated Jake for a broken arm years ago. His wife had died of cancer 2 years earlier. We started talking by the frozen foods and didn't stop for an hour. I heard about what happened, he said gently. The whole hospital was talking about it. What your husband did was unforgivable. We started having coffee, then dinner, then long walks by the ocean. David was everything Mark wasn't. Kind without agenda, successful without arrogance, interested in my stories from the force. He brought flowers to Emma's graduation, cheered at Jake's soccer games. He didn't try to replace their father, just showed them what a good man actually looked like. I don't understand how anyone could have you and throw it away, he told me one evening as we watched the sunset. His loss is definitely my gain. My kids thrived without the tension Mark had brought to our home. Emma headed to Yale strong and confident, saying the whole experience taught her to never dim her light for anyone. Jake made varsity soccer his anger channeled into athletic excellence. They both went to therapy, processed the trauma, came out stronger. Jake even wrote his college essay about it. The day my father taught me who not to be. It was brutal, honest, and got him into every school he applied to. 6 months after that horrible October day, my life had completely transformed. The house that had felt like a prison now felt like a sanctuary. I'd redecorated, removing every trace of Mark, filling the spaces with things that brought me joy. My retirement allowed me to start a private investigation firm specializing in infidelity cases. Turns out there was huge demand for a female PI who understood betrayal firsthand. My first client was a woman whose situation mirrored mine. Her husband of 30 years was acting suspicious. It took me 3 days to gather evidence of his affair with his personal trainer. But unlike Mark, when confronted privately, he broke down, ended the affair, and went to counseling. They're still together, working through it. Not every story ends in destruction. The business grew quickly. Word spread about the ex-cop who'd been publicly humiliated and turned it into purpose. I hired 2 other retired female officers. We became known as the Truth Squad, helping people uncover deception, but also, when possible, salvage relationships worth saving. The irony wasn't lost on me that Mark's betrayal had led me to a career I loved more than police work. I was my own boss, making 3 times my sergeant's salary, helping people in their darkest moments. The very thing meant to destroy me had elevated me. My relationship with David deepened naturally. He never rushed, never pressured, just consistently showed up. When I had nightmares about the retirement party, he held me. When Father's Day came and the kids struggled, he took them fishing, letting them talk or not talk as needed. He understood that loving me meant loving my children and my scars. "You're not a consolation prize," he told me one night. "You're the grand prize." Mark was just too stupid to see it. Emma called from Yale every week, sharing her triumphs and challenges. She joined a women's empowerment group, became an advocate for betrayed spouses. She wrote a piece for the campus newspaper about public humiliation that went viral. My daughter took our pain and turned it into power. Jake's relationship with his father remained non-existent. Mark sent letters, cards, gifts, all returned unopened. The supervised visitation orders expired unused. Jake told his therapist he might forgive his father someday, but not today, and that was okay. "He made his choice," Jake said. "He chose Brittany and humiliation over us. Now he gets to live with that choice." My ex-in-laws became regular fixtures in our lives. They'd completely cut Mark off, changing their will to leave everything to the grandchildren. His mother took me to lunch monthly, always apologizing for her son, always reassuring me that I was the daughter she chose. "I failed as a mother," she said once. "I raised a narcissist." "You raised a man with free will who made terrible choices," I corrected. "That's on him, not you." Mark's attempts to reconcile never stopped. Letters arrived weekly, each more desperate than the last. He'd found God, he claimed. Was in therapy, seeing his narcissism clearly. Understood the pain he'd caused. Would spend the rest of his life making amends if I'd let him. I never responded, but I did read them. Not from any lingering love, but as reminders of what I'd survived and overcome. Each letter reinforced that leaving him behind was the right choice. A man who could plan such cruelty, execute it so coldly, then claim it was confusion, didn't deserve forgiveness, at least not mine. Tony, who'd become even closer through everything, asked me once if I regretted the 20 years. "No," I said honestly. "Those years gave me Emma and Jake. They taught me strength I didn't know I had. They led me here to this life that's actually mine, not a supporting role in someone else's story." The truth about regret is that it assumes you'd change things if you could. But changing things would mean not having my children, not learning these lessons, not becoming who I am now. Mark thought he was ending my story at that retirement party. Instead, he was starting my real life. A year to the day after the retirement party, I held another celebration at the same country club. Same room, many of the same people, but completely different energy. This time it was the launch party for my investigation firm's expansion to 3 cities. My kids spoke proud of their mother. David stood beside me, supportive but not possessive. Chief Williams joked that I was solving more cases in retirement than I ever did on the force. Halfway through the party, security informed me someone was trying to enter. Mark, of course. He'd heard about the event, wanted to apologize publicly, make amends where he'd caused harm. Security had already removed him, but I went to the parking lot anyway. He looked terrible. Thin gray, aged 10 years and 1. The confident banker was gone, replaced by a hollow man living with consequences. "Please, Elsa, let me apologize to everyone. Let me make this right." "You can't make this right, Mark. Some things can't be undone." I think about that day constantly. If I could take it back. But you can't. You planned it for a year, executed it perfectly, exactly as intended. You got what you wanted, the divorce, the freedom, Brittany. It just didn't turn out how you expected. I never thought I'd lose everything. You didn't lose everything. You threw it away. There's a difference. I left him in the parking lot and returned to my real party surrounded by people who actually loved me. The police chief raised a toast to second chances and new beginnings. Emma and Jake hugged me tight. David kissed my cheek. This was my life now, built from the ashes of public humiliation, stronger and more authentic than anything I'd had before. That night, David and I walked on the beach near my house. The moon reflected off the water, and everything felt peaceful in a way it hadn't in years. "Do you think you'll ever fully heal?" he asked. "I don't think you fully heal from betrayal like that." I answered honestly. But scar tissue is stronger than regular skin. I'm not trying to heal back to who I was. I'm becoming who I was meant to be. 3 months later, Brittany was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. She'd tried to play victim in court, claiming the men pursued her, that she was manipulated too. The jury didn't buy it. Too much evidence, too many victims, too clear a pattern. Mark attended every day of her trial, perhaps finally understanding how thoroughly he'd been played. He wrote me after the sentencing his longest letter yet. He detailed every lie she'd told, every manipulation, as if exposing her validated him somehow. He still didn't understand that Brittany, being a con artist, didn't excuse his choices. He chose to cheat. He chose the retirement party. He chose cruelty. Brittany just gave him an excuse. My business continued to thrive. We expanded to 5 cities, hired 10 investigators, all women who understood betrayal personally. We didn't just catch cheaters. We provided resources for recovery-connected clients with therapists and lawyers, created a support network for people navigating the worst moments of their lives. One case particularly stood out. A young woman, maybe 25, hired us to investigate her fiancé. She had a gut feeling something was wrong. Within a week, we discovered he was married with 3 kids in another state. She was devastated but grateful. "You saved me from my own retirement party moment," she said, crying in my office. That's what we did. We prevented retirement party moments. We gave people the truth before it could destroy them publicly. We turned my humiliation into hundreds of people's salvation. David proposed on a Tuesday morning over coffee. Nothing fancy, just sincere. "I want to spend whatever time I have left loving you properly, the way you always deserve to be loved." I said yes, but with conditions. Small wedding family only, no grand gestures or public displays. We married in my backyard with 20 people present. Emma was my maid of honor. Jake walked me down the aisle. My mother cried happy tears this time. Even Tony got emotional, claiming it was allergies. Mark found out through social media, sent a letter saying he was happy for me, that I deserved love, that David was lucky. Maybe he meant it, maybe not. It didn't matter anymore. He was a chapter in my story, not the whole book. The wedding was everything my first wedding wasn't: authentic, intimate, and truly about love rather than image. David's vows made everyone cry. He promised to love not just me, but my history, my scars, my children, my strength, and even my broken parts. He understood that loving someone who'd been betrayed meant being patient with trust, gentle with triggers, and consistent in actions. "I promise," he said, "to never make you question your worth, never dim your light, and never ever serve you papers at a party." Everyone laughed through tears. It was perfect. That's the thing about public humiliation. Mark thought he was destroying me in front of everyone who mattered. Instead, he revealed himself while setting me free. Every person in that room at my retirement party became part of my support system, witnesses to both my worst day and my eventual triumph. The retirement party meant to end my story became the beginning of my real life. The divorce papers meant to diminish me became my liberation documents. The public humiliation meant to break me became the foundation of my strength. If someone serves you divorce papers at your retirement party in front of everyone you know and respect, after 20 years of marriage, after cheating with someone younger, after stealing your money and planning it all for a year, thank them. They've just given you the clearest sign possible that you deserve so much better. And trust me better is exactly what's waiting on the other side of that pain. It won't feel like a gift at first. It'll feel like death, like everything you built is crumbling. You'll question everything, wonder how you missed the signs, blame yourself for trusting. But slowly, as the truth emerges and the shock fades, you'll realize they did you a favor. They showed you exactly who they are publicly, undeniably, without any room for doubt or second chances. Mark regrets everything now. His letters say so, his family says so. His complete life collapse proves it. But his regret doesn't restore what he broke. It doesn't erase the trauma he inflicted on our children. It doesn't undo the humiliation he planned so carefully. His regret is his burden to carry, not mine to relieve. Meanwhile, I wake up every morning in a house filled with peace beside a man who cherishes me, running a business that helps others with children who've learned resilience from disaster. My retirement from the police force led to this incredible second act I never could have imagined. So to anyone watching who's been betrayed, publicly humiliated, had their life destroyed by someone they trusted, you will survive this. You will thrive after this. Your worst day is not your last day. It's just the day your real story begins. And I promise you, the story you write for yourself will be infinitely better than the supporting role you were playing in someone else's tragedy. That's my story. The woman who got served divorce papers at her retirement party is now living her best life, while the man who served them lives with nothing but regret. Sometimes karma takes its time, but it always finds the right address. And sometimes, just sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. You just have to survive long enough to see the plot twist. What would you have done if your spouse served you divorce papers at your own retirement party? Have you ever had your worst day turn into your best beginning? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of triumph over betrayal. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that their worst day isn't their final chapter. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, you're stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and worthy of so much more than someone who would humiliate you when you should be celebrated. Stay strong, my friends.